Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first draft video by me, Pion, where we'll be walking through the process of playing an expert draft in Solforge. And, well, I'm going to try to share my thoughts on this draft format, and hopefully you'll learn something as we go along. So let's join into the draft here. Join with event tickets, of course. And here we have possibly the next best heroic in the pack, Borean Windweaver. This is a slam pick. The only card I'd consider picking over this is the very, very powerful Snowdrift Alpha. Other cards that are interesting in this pack is Portal Shade, this card. It's a sizable body with a good ability that is relevant even later in the game. So even if you don't get to play it on player level 1 and it's not a leveled threat, it's still a very good underdrop, which the same is true for Borean Windweaver. It's an amazing threat when you level it, and it's amazing underdrop. And that I think is the most important reason why Borean Windweaver is so good. Other notable cards are Frostfang Maiden, which is levels really strong. It's good at level 2, especially level 3. But I think it's a clear pick with Borean Windweaver here. I haven't actually played Ambriel's Addicting Draft yet. I suspect that it is it would be pretty good in an Aloyan late game deck, but you shouldn't rely on cards like this to get you back, because that is one sure way of getting a few losses when you don't draw it when you need it. One of my favorite strategies to go with in this draft format is Necrim Tempest, because you can push 4 damage. If you have Windweavers, there are very many good ways to push 4 damage, and I'm going to choose Graveborn Glutton here to solidify myself, make sure that I get the good faction combination. Off of the faction combination, starting with Tempest, I think Tempest Necrim is the best, following by Tempest Aloyan, and lastly Tempest Utera. And if you're Tempest Utera, I think you should probably also go aggressive with big creatures like the new Swamp Moss Ancient, the 7/7, that levels into a 12/12. But here we're going with a Graveborn Glutton. Necromoeba is an amazing draft card. It's at its best in NU, although it is so good that I will play it in any deck. Here we have not a too interesting decision, because we have Borean Windweaver to get things through, and Uranti Elementalist is a kind of a specialist card. You want 1 or 2 of these to help you finish the game, or a few of these effects. This is basically a spell on a creature that makes sure you get through in the late game. Flame Rift Instigator is good in AT. It's also good in, well, it's going to be decent in any NU and Necrim Tempest deck too. If you can get Avalanche Guardians, which is one of the best cards, even for an aggressive deck, because it's such a good blocker. And even though, well, you want to be aggressive in most lanes, but when you need to have also big blockers to answer your opponent's threats. So 2 easy win primordials here. Calamity Fiend is one of the greatest cards, non-heroic, for this type of strategy. It can change trades, and turning the tides of trades is one of the most important traits for a card in Tempest Necrim. When this effect is attached to a creature, it's incredibly powerful and very relevant, especially in player level 1. I'd be looking to play this in player level 1. So let me just adjust my chair. Sit back a little bit more comfortably. Yes. So here we get an interesting pick between... oh, excuse me. Let's try not to make too much sound there. I'm sorry about that. So here the pick is between Avalanche Guardian and Graveborn Glutton. And because Avalanche Guardian is such a, as I said, even in an aggressive deck, having this big mobility body to trade with 2 of your opponent's creatures and allowing your own creatures to get through is really important. I think gluttons come around in, well, they're going to be plentiful. And this is more of a specialist card, so I'm going to pick that one. And here, I think it's a clear pick. Infernal Visage is great in Necrim Tempest, especially because of the mobility theme. You can have Wind Primordials and Borean Windweavers and Avalanche Guardians move into a side lane to get the pump, or move out of the side lane to give another creature a chance to get the pump. So it's an easy pick here over not very many interesting cards. Spirit Leash here. I wouldn't normally consider this card for a Necrim Tempest strategy, but I think that it is going to be very good with Necromoeba. So question is it good enough that I could play it as a specialist card? Or is it just better to play in Euronti Elementalist? I'm not looking for this Perdition Guard, even though we could potentially get a trade with something in player level 1 and have a big creature in player level 2. I should say that my main strategy with this deck is going to be gain a big advantage in player level 1 and 2 in order to be able to capitalize this with the mobility creatures and glutton damage to be able to push through the last points of damage early in player level 3. And I think that's how at least 2 of our games are going to end this draft. So Spirit Leash is interesting, especially since we have Necromoeba. We could also sacrifice Avalanche Guardians that doesn't do anything. Let's try it out, actually, because I think Elementalist isn't the most important here. Not very fond of this pick. I think Steam Sentinel just a trade because it's more reliable than Gloom Spireworm. I mean, Gloom Spireworm is good at 1.1, but past that, I doubt we're going to get much use of it. In this hand, this pack, we see a few interesting cards. Nothing that I'm very excited about. Scavenger, Scorpion, Zombie Titan, and Volcanic Giant are all decent bodies to put into a deck like this. These are not cards that I intend to level, and based on that, I think I'd be most inclined to pick Scavenger Scorpion here. Just because its body at level 1 is the best. I could also be swayed to Shatterbolt, because having a few of these effects to push one of your, maybe you have a Graveborn Glutton 3 that is blocked by something, and you can Shatterbolt to push a lot of damage. And I think that specialist card is what we want here. None of these cards interest me too much here, but I think I'm going to go with the Flame Rift Instigator because we have the Steam Sentinel and the Avalanche Guardian. And here Stormcaller is one of the best cards in draft, I think. Pick up as many of these as you can. They are great underdrops, and they aren't bad at all when you level them because they allow your other cards to do a lot of work just because of their great size. I'm not very interested in any of these cards, so because of that, I think I'm just going to pick the Perdition Guard to perhaps, as I spoke earlier, get a block in and have a big level 2. Scythian Hulk is very, very underwhelming, so I'm going to pick Euronti Bolt for more of a specialist type burn spell. We don't have any dinosaurs, unfortunately, so Thunderstorm really isn't going to do much unless we pick up a lot of Razortooth Stalkers, which I suspect that we won't. Seeing that, I'm just going to pick the best body here. I'm not interested in another Euronti Bolt, so I'm just going to pick a Zombie Titan here. Here we have two very good cards, Dirge Banshee and Bitterfrost Totem. Dirge Banshee is one of the best blockers in this type of strategy. They will allow your Wind Primordials or Borean Windweavers to move into an open lane and themselves block creatures of very large sizes to great effect. So I'm going to pick that over Bitterfrost Totem, which is an amazing underdrop. Abyssal Brute is a card I'd rather have than Infernal Visage in this type of decks. And I don't really need the high power of the Spirit Frost Shaman because I have a lot of creatures with high power already. And among these, Scourge Hydra is, I think, just the biggest body. I'm not necessarily going to look to level the Scourge Hydra. It's going to be useful if I do, and it's going to be useful if I don't. And that is true for many cards in this deck, which is going to make the deck very versatile. Let's check out how many abominations we have. We have Glutton, we have Perdition card is a Naga, I think, Brute. So not too many of them, unfortunately. We have an Bolt already, and while it levels well, I don't think I need more of this type of effect. So I'm going to pick Abyssal Maw just to be played in maybe player level 2 and player level 3 when we randomly have an abomination out. Calamity Fiend is by far the best card in this pack, and I'm very happy to pick up another one. And here we get the Bitterfrost Totem that I wanted before. None of these other cards are interesting, and I pick Shatterbolt if this card wasn't here. Thrannic Ambusher is a great card in an aggressive deck, so I'm going to pick that over Stuff, and this is basically Stuff and a great trick, so Frost Shatter Strike it is. Among these, I think Wind Primordial is better than Volcanic Giant, so let's do that. And here we have one of my, a few of the cards that I really, really enjoy here. Firelight Hunter, Blizzard Shaman, and Everflame Aura are all very interesting cards in this type of deck. Which one I would choose, I am not certain yet. And I haven't made up my mind about all of these. Firelight Hunter really is a great way of maybe, say you're playing a Stormcaller in player level 1, your opponent blocks it with a Scourge Hydra that is turned into a 7/4, and you play a Firelight Hunter to get your Stormcaller through, forcing them to play another high attack creature that they may not want to play, or maybe not even have the answer for the Stormcaller the next turn. It can push a lot of damage, but at the same time, you can have a Blizzard Shaman to move them out of the way, and the Blizzard Shaman itself is a big body that needs to be answered. So this is maybe the most snowbally card in player level 1, and we do have this mobility type effect and damage type effect on other cards in our deck. So Stormcaller, amazing card, pick it. None of these are very exciting. I could see picking Glacial Crush just because of if we face defenders, so that's what I'm going to do. None of these other cards excite me. I'm not going to pick a second Spirit Leash. I'm not going to go that deep on the Necromoeba, which is basically the only good target for it. Seismic Adapt is a really solid creature. I'm just going to pick that here over Urantu Warstalker that I'm not very fond of, and Sigmund Fraud, which is actually a good draft card, but mainly in Necrom Terra, where you have 1/1s that you can sacrifice. Last card, I'm going to pick up a Volcanic Giant, just because of its better body and for the slight amount of reach that it provides. So let's start, play the first game. And before we go in there, let's just review the deck slightly. So we have a few cards that we would really like to level, but mostly the deck consists of cards that are great to level and very good under level too. The cards I will be looking to level are the Abyssal Brute, Dirge Banshee, Thrannic Ambushers, Blizzard Shaman if I get the choice, if I have the chance, maybe potentially Infernal Visage, and potentially Scourge Hydra. I'm looking also to level none of these, perhaps the Graveborn Glutton, the Avalanche Guardian, both the Calamity Fiends and the Stormcallers, maybe Necromoeba, Windweaver, and Seismic Adapt. So there are a lot of cards that I'd be very much willing to. Let's see. I don't need to play this tutorial. So let's see when our opponent shows up. Not quite yet. So let's talk a bit more about this deck. For great underdrops and specific effects. Well, let's talk about the specific effects first. So we have a solid core of 10 to 12, maybe 15 creatures that we'd like to level. So we're likely to level most of those. I think 6 or 7 if we have 8 cards to level, or even 7, yeah. So most of the cards we'll level are going to be creatures we're glad to level. Good underdrops include, well, the Calamity Fiends are good underdrops as well. Avalanche Guardian is fine. Frost Tetherstype and Bitter Frost Totem are amazing underdrops. They will really make your deck tick. Borean Windweaver, if we don't get to level it, will make a great underdrop, as will Seismic Adapt, because of their abilities to affect the board and make the bigger or the higher level creatures trade better. And like I said, this Perdition Guard is something that I normally don't like having in the deck. I'd rather have something that does something good on player level 1. But if I get the chance to play it, I'm not sure I will play it over something like, if I can make a trade to level it up, or if I can win, if I can choose between blocking with Perdition Guard and level it, or block with, say, a Blizzard Shaman and win the trade and level that, I'd rather just win the trade to get a bigger board advantage, because the board advantage in draft will lead to a lot of good things happening for you. Well, since there seems to be some sort of waiting time, let me just turn off the video and we'll return when our opponent shows up. So I'll see you for round 1 soon.